Hello everybody, Timothy McCain here, and thank you so much for listening and to watching this first video. Listen, today I want to talk to you about a topic that I think is vitally important. And so before we get in any details, before we get into calling and booking and making networking and connections, and I believe the most effective connection is one that happens deep through deep relationship. Before we talk about any of these different things, some of the stuff that's not really fun to talk about, before we talk about any of the business and any of the financial things or any of that stuff, the very first thing that is imperative and it's so important, and it's the very first thing that I tell people when they ask me, hey, I want to be an evangelist, what's the first thing you're going to do? I'll tell everybody the exact same thing. I ask them, how's your heart? Listen, if you are called to be an evangelist, and again, I'm talking about the sense of in any sense, whether it's street evangelism, whether it's going to church, whether it's missionary evangelism, the hardest thing to protect is your heart, right? And so I believe, family, that if you can, I'll tell them this: if you cannot handle rejection, this is a hard office for you. And the reason why it's harder and it's different from, I believe, other offices is that there's not a place for evangelists, right? And so I know, and even on my own particular, and I travel cross denominational, but even in my particular denomination, there's not the same emphasis on a national office of you call this person, right? There's district youth directors, there's missionaries, there's place where if you're a missionary you can go to, and there's a place for pastors, they call them on a national level and a district level. But an evangelist, no, that network you have to create yourself, right? And so I always tell them this is that one of the reasons why the rejection is so important, because if you don't protect your heart, if you don't know how to learn how to use man's rejection as God's redirection, because the same people that you feel should believe in what you're doing are the very pastors connected around to you, right? And so if you don't protect your heart, what's going to happen is your heart is going to get hard, and it is impossible to serve those you hate, right? And so the Bible says this, to guard your heart with all diligency, for out it springs of your issues of life. And so it's a hard thing to do when you are so passionate, man, about what God is calling you to do, and you tell people, and man, even when things start happening, things will start happening in your ministry, start happening in your life, man, you're gonna start praying for people in Walmart, and you're gonna do ministry, because the office of evangelist is not about a stage, all right? It's just like pastors don't pastor just when they're in church. It's everything. It's who you are, right? And so you see moments to intervene, to step in, to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So in your marketplace, everyday life, man, when you start seeing, man, people being saved and blind eyes open and deaf ears hearing and people being encouraged, right? And you may think, man, because that's what I thought, man, that should be enough. And so I remember when I first started traveling as an evangelist. I remember I was working in this rehab place, and man, we started seeing people, man, our break times, God was moving. We started seeing people healed and things of that nature, and then in churches we started seeing people being healed from so many creative miracles. And I remember walking out with hearing aids in my hand, and man, seeing God do some absolute incredible things. And so I've been being not ignorant, I didn't know, and obviously I had no idea the workload that was going on in a pastor's life. Listen, evangelists, you have no idea what they deal with on a daily basis, the amount of phone calls they got. So again, I'm not having this channel to weaponize a feeling as if pointing fingers that it's the pastor's fault. So don't get it twisted. But there's definitely some things we got to talk about. And so I remember calling these churches, hey man, God is doing this, God is doing this, God is doing this. And I thought, man, it's going to be that easy. Oh, boom, I'm going to get a phone call. And our pastor's going to say, hey, let's meet up. And I was probably 20 years old, maybe. Nothing at all. It was cricket. And I remember scratching my head. I'm like, I don't understand. Again, I didn't know all the policies. I didn't know all the minute protocols, and I didn't know the politics, because church has politics. I didn't know any of that stuff. I just knew that when I read scripture and the Bible says you lay hands on the sick and they shall recover, all I knew was that while we were praying, blind eyes were opening, cancer was being dried out, and God was doing supernatural things. And on top of that, the reason that all this stuff was happening, so signs and wonders, man, souls were being saved from magnitudes of souls being saved, right? And so, man, we started seeing God do some amazing things. And I calling these places, I thought, well, this is it. It's gonna be enough, but it wasn't. So I remember even from the beginning of that, I questioned, said, man, why? And again, a lot of stuff I had to learn along the way, but then along the way, making phone calls. Remember, I never forget, I had a call to church. This happened many times. Called a church, and the pastor literally told me, he said, why do I need to bring an evangelist to do something that I'm already doing myself, a pastor? Right? And so it's different, just like how it's different. You know what I'm saying? Office different. So then I questioned myself, like, man, here I am. But the dynamics of what is that? Here I am, a young man, wanting to be mentored, wanting to be fathered, needing to be led, but feeling like I was there's some capacities that I just had to figure out by myself, right? And so there were some great men, pastors connected to me that helped. North Carolina Master's Commission, incredible program, incredible school. Man, they sent me, they prayed for me, you know, all this great. And I'll go to him, Pastor Kim and Pastor Connie and Pastor Dave and all them for different type of questions and stuff, and they had my back, right? But when it comes to like the evangelist type stuff, when it comes like, man, why don't they believe in me? What's going on with me? What's wrong with me? I feel like, man, where am I at? And so then along the way, I found out that, man, I'm having a hard time to connect myself with people. And like, why in the world can I not find a father in the faith, a mentor in the faith? Now, when I read about Paul and Timothy, I read about Titus, and I read about Philemon, and I read about all these different people, I read about the relationships that they had and all these different things. And then I found myself, man, going to these district councils and these events, and I hated when they put their title in front of your name. Right? I hated it because you'll shake someone's hand and you're really trying to get to know somebody. You're really trying to build deep community, deep relationships. I've never been one to go around to an event and I'm passing out cards left and right, because I do believe in relationships. If God has it, God has it, right? Never been that particular guy, just trying to make it rain. But I realized very quickly in these district events and these ministry events, as I shake their hand, boom, it's a how are you doing, boom, boom, boom. Then they'll look down, see my name tag, see Evangelist, all right, and then they'll end the conversation, say goodbye. Pastors, yo. And the problem is I feel like I lifted them into this pedestal of thinking, man, these pastors, these shepherds, whatever, but again, completely ignorant of not knowing all the things they go through on a daily and a weekly basis. The bombardment of phone calls, people that they wonder, do you want me or do you just want to date? Do you care about me? Do you care about my family? Do you care about my kids? Or do you just want to date? So again, you got to understand, putting yourself in their shoes. So all this stuff I was completely ignorant about. I had no idea what was going on, but still, regardless of it, there was still a need in me, a desire in me, a passion in me, a burden in me. So I had to realize, before I talk about anything, the hardest thing and the most important thing to protect was my heart. Guard your heart with all diligency, for out of it springs the issues of life. So when a pastor tells me no, when I go to an event and and people make fun, I can't tell you the amount of time I've been to a district event or heard district officials or district presbyters talk about evangelists like it's just the punchline of a joke. All these different times I had to not get mad, protect my heart, not to want to get into the flesh and give a piece of my mind. You know what I'm saying? But to learn how to sit back and say, you know what? They haven't called me. God has. So I'm making this video and I'm starting off right here. And I know it's not a very exciting topic, but it's so important. Those of you who are in any type of itinerant ministry, or maybe if you've been pastoring yourself, protect your heart. Guard your heart with all diligency, for out of it springs the issues of life. So if you're watching this right now and you feel called to be an evangelist, and you said you feel called to be an itinerant missionary or whatever it may be, and this is where you have to start. The assumptions is that you're already saved. I mean, you're feeding relationship with the Lord, man. You're doing all these things you should be doing regardless of a position or office, right? No, this is to say you're already doing these things. But I'm saying, family, this is where it starts. And this is when I have people calling me again, asking me, hey, I want to evangelize, what do I do? And it's the very first place I tell them is, listen, if you cannot handle rejection, this may not be for you. When you get rejected, do you go on social media and you talk about them? When you get rejected, when you get told no, when you get told you're not good enough, or you don't preach well enough, or you stutter, or you slur, or you don't look right, or you're not white, or you're not black, or you're not what I'm looking for, you don't fit this church, you don't fit the vision of this church. If you get told these things, do you go on social media and you blast everybody? Right? What do you do? How do you handle these moments? What do you do in these moments? How do you handle when you see them again and you shake their hand and they totally forgot about what they told you, but it's burned into the lens of your heart? What do you do? And you see, and you wear those sunglasses. If you're not careful, you'll wear those sunglasses of offense and you will see everything through them. And you'll find yourself, when you're traveling, preaching about the church, that you start cursing the bride instead of encouraging it. What do you do? So I'm saying, family, this is where you have to start. You feel called to be an evangelist, this is where you start. Like I said, this channel, we're going to talk about some things. Be honest about some things. Be open about some things. But I know that's going to help you. So first and foremost, man, sister, brother, my people, pray. Protect your heart. Guard your heart with all diligency, for out of it springs of your issues of life. And don't play the blame game. But blame game is a dangerous game of Russian roulette where everybody dies. You know what I'm saying? So again, understand the weight that's on these pastors, on these leaders, on these, understand, right? And so I'm not making these channel to give a place to curse pastors. I'm a pastor myself. I travel full-time. Right now I'm serving as a young adult pastor at my church as well on Thursdays, but I travel full-time, right? On the same time preaching the gospel. And so I know what it's like to some extent, but I'm not a lead pastor. I'm not a senior pastor, right? And again, so these things we're going to talk about, and it's imperative that you start right here, protecting su corazón. Protect your heart. Guard your heart, right? And so anyways, do me a favor. I want you to share this video. Let's start the conversation. The comment section is open. All right. Have you been in this particular place? Again, we're talking about some things. This is rated R. This is rated real. This is rated honest. So ethnically, wholesomely, respectfully, what is going on, and how have you? Maybe you've been traveling evangelist, or maybe you feel called evangelist. What are some things that you're doing to protect your heart? Make sure you're in the Word. Make sure you're praying. Make sure that your calling is connected to who God is, not connected to who people think you are, right? And so anyway, family, that's it for today. I got more videos coming. So much to talk about. We can talk about some practical things in some future videos, talking about your credit score, while that is vitally important to your success. We're going to talk about airline and traveling and travel hacks and rental cars, and we're going to talk about how to stay awake on long trips and things of that nature. So a lot of practical things that I believe is going to have your back, and I believe you're going to dig it. And so I'll put my social media, current Opening Eyes Ministries is the ministry Instagram and Facebook. I'll put it right there in the description, as well as a couple of books is coming out. You can go check it out there. And but yeah, family, holla at y'all later. Peace.